So corporal punishment is like accepted. It's just part of what happens for the boys, not for the girls, which is interesting. In regards to sexual abuse, I know there are others that are more knowledgeable about, what goes on. I know in my family system, there was a situation where relatives came to my parents, close relatives, who did nothing. And like, it still blows my mind. It still blows my mind because so many lives have continued to be hurt because of that. My parents were highly respected members of the community, but the need to uphold your reputation as a respected member of the community means that the individual needs of a person are crushed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sometimes not even an understanding that that's illegal, right? Like, you can't do that. I was always so afraid, especially with my boys, because not always, it seems to be more prevalent with boys. I was always so afraid, if they would have a tutor or anything. It was just always, boys are expected to go to the ritual baths every Friday. We should talk about the ritual bath.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I've heard of this.
Okay, so the ritual bath, the mikvah, plays a large role in Hasidic life. So a ritual bath is like a water, like, I guess, like a small pool, I guess. It has a lot of uses. So number one, I'll start with in some ways the weirdest, but the most benign one. If you buy dishes from a non-Jew, you need to, I guess, make them kosher. And you do that by dipping them into water. So you can do that either by the sea, if you live next to the sea, or you can do it in this ritual bath, which basically collects rainwater. My mother used to buy dishes pretty often. She was a hostess. So, you go there and dip it in. Nowadays, a lot of the household stores in neighborhoods close to Hasidic people will have that kind of ritual bath in the back of the store. So you can just buy your stuff and then just go dip, 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 and then go home. So that's one use. Another use is for humans. So Hasidic men, go often every day. And it's like a way to purify yourself. Okay, so you're kind of dipping into this bath. For men, it's public. So it's kind of like this public space where you just go in together with whoever's there. Children, young boys, including my brothers and my children, would go on Friday with their fathers or without their fathers, but that would be considered just an expectation. So these people are completely nude, going in the water, and there's kids there too. I will say, to my ex-husband's credit, he was always afraid. So he didn't want to take the boys when they were too little. So he only took them out when they got older. But they had to go, Then the final use of the ritual bath, which you only find out about when you're ready to get married, is women use the ritual bath in a more secret way. And they use the ritual bath as part of the menstrual pure cycle, which I can talk about, which I will say so many people in the community and even outside the community like to turn it into something beautiful. And it's abusive on so many levels. And, I was watching, I forgot which documentary, the FLDS, Sweet Child, Sweet something.
Keep sweet, pray, and obey.
Yeah. And, I watch these things and they're very triggering. But then I, look at all kind of the sexual stuff and I'm like, we had none of that. And then I'm like, whoa, 1 second. Like, this whole, you don't hear it. Nobody talks about it until you're engaged. And then you have a special teacher who teaches you. There's no sex ed anywhere. So I was, 18, and I can talk about how I, was matched up. And then you're 18, no sex ed, never had a boyfriend, nothing, and then all of a sudden you're given all this information and another whole set of rules. So I guess going back to what we were talking about before, like what my teenage years were like, I mentioned how separate everything was. But as I became a teenager, I was very angry about how I was restricted more than everybody else. So I went to a movie once, which was like completely out of line, going to a movie. And I never had a boyfriend, but pretended that I knew some boys and talked to some boys because that was kind of, you know, my parents freaked out and had no idea what to do with me. Like, no idea, because I was a very obedient child. You know, again, they had this reputation in the community. My mother was a teacher, a principal, highly respected in the school. My father was very charitable. You know, and when I was 16, they said, okay, we're moving. We're moving. And we moved to a city up in Rockland County in New York State that had a much larger Hasidic community. And you are going to a religious seminary in Northern England until you behave. And I remember going to the school principal and like, I love to learn, I still do, and was like begging him, please, can I stay? Like, I'll board by somebody, I'll find something, like, I really want to stay. But the whole thing was, so my parents, you know, they spoke to him beforehand. Of course he wasn't going to say yes, you know? But like, the more I think about it, the more like, I can't believe it. Like, did nobody see what was going on? Did nobody see that I just wanted to finish school? So I was sent to a seminary and told I can only come back if I behave. I hated it there. It was awful. Talk about rules. I don't know. Within the first week, there's this piece of paper going around that people are passing one to each other, like the new girls. It's 150 girls coming in the first year, and then it got a little smaller over the years. So it was a 3-year program in a small village in northern England. So us new people, 150 people, there's this paper being passed around. So you open the paper, it says, the way you're currently opening your pads is not allowed on Saturday, on Shabbat. That's a forbidden way of opening it. And there's a new way, a different way that you have to open it. It's like, whoa, okay. And like, we were all coming from super religious homes. Like, it wasn't like we needed to be educated, but in retrospect, it was almost like, we're going to find places where you don't do things stringently enough, and we're going to make sure that you do. You know, it's like this manipulation and control. And my gosh, it was like this classroom, 150 girls, a guy teacher sitting on top on this podium. I mean, it was, and one of the rabbis there was the one that wrote a full book, a textbook on the rules of modesty, complete with diagrams of like the neckline, the elbow, where on the elbow. It's like a full textbook. And it's like, what motivates somebody, you know, to devote their life, their energy? And people take it as the word of God. That's what they take it as, the word of God.
Do you think the purpose of all of these rules and the control down to that level is just to keep you so in your brain of checking off the things that you have to do, so you can't even consider questioning or ask,
think of anything else?
Yeah, you're just so focused on not messing up that you can't even allow your intuition or original thought to come into your head.
Yeah, even more so. I was pretty interested in theology, I would say, relatively speaking to other people. But for the most part, there isn't really a discussion of theology. I mean, who has time for it? And more so, nobody really cares what you believe. As long as you are doing the things you need to do and portray yourself as observant in the community, you know, you're okay. It definitely keeps you busy. You know, there's, I mean, so busy. Like, one of the challenges that I have now is being okay with just resting, with just slowing down, because when you have, you know, all these million rules, you don't even have a chance to tune into yourself, to think about what you want, to have dreams. You know, some people, when they leave the community, they like think back about what dreams did they have when they were younger, you know, when they leave, right, these very, you know, controlled spaces. But like, I didn't even have time to think about what I wanted to be. Like it was just, I was being prepared to be a wife. That was it.
Yeah.
If I cooked something well, it was like, oh, great. We'll tell the matchmaker, like, in a joke. I don't think they really told the matchmaker, but it was like, oh, this will make you a better wife.